Remember these classic shots from a certain 1977 space opera? No, you don't, because we made them with paper models. Ha! Hello humans. Well now, pretty obvious what we're doing here today. And to celebrate the release of the second season of The Mandalorian, where ILM have embraced the practical approach once again, we're going to travel back in time and revisit some of the techniques that were pioneered by Industrial Light and Magic to shoot flying spaceships for this film. It was in the late 70s, Trek Wars, Star Wars! Back in the mid-70s, a fledgling company was formed by George Lucas to work on his film about a young farm boy battling the forces of evil. The company was called Industrial Light and Magic, or ILM, featuring many talented model makers, matte painters, and pioneers in motion control photography. The first film to be released, Star Wars: A New Hope, was a masterclass in special effects. People like Dennis Murren, John Dykstra, and Richard Edlund were instrumental in developing and refining the way special effects are shot and composited, changing the filmmaking landscape forever. Today we're going to be exploring one particular aspect of some of their miniature photography, specifically how to shoot a spaceship flying towards and away from camera. For our example, we're going to be demonstrating how some of the TIE fighter shots were achieved in A New Hope, to really showcase how to shoot miniatures in motion. All right, so we've managed to get about 30 foot of track for this shoot, which is great. Basically, we just need as much as we can get. Then, once we've built the track, we're going to offer up our model at the end of it, and then we can get a sense of just how big our blue screen's going to need to be.
So while Tommy's laying the track, I thought I'd talk you through our model here. This is actually made of paper. Getting a studio scale, or in this case, slightly larger than studio scale model is incredibly expensive. So I found online there's a growing community of people making what's called paper craft models. Now these are models that people design, and they're like schematics or designs that you then cut out, paste, glue, sellotape to make wonderful 3D models. This particular one is been scaled up for our purposes, backed it up with some card to make the paper surface a bit more rigid to hold its form. And the wings are foam core or foam board with paper print outs stuck on top. What this gives us is a very lightweight model, so it's very easy to rig, very easy to move, and the center spine, if you like, is PVC tube. That's just to give it a nice rigid structure with a nice little cavity in the back for us to rig our spin rig. So what we have here is a stepper motor and an axle, if you like, that comes off here and clamps to the PVC pipe. Now this stepper motor is controlled by this controller box and pairs with a phone via Bluetooth and enables you to control up to 3 outputs on the controller, and it enables you to ramp through motion. And in our case, I've rigged this motor through a spindle through the back of the model, and what that's going to give us is a roll motion. They actually had a very similar setup to this on the original A New Hope. And by rolling the model, what that gives us with our hard key light is some really good shadow play across the model. And then when we have that happening in camera, it can give a very realistic result. And if I just rotate here, you can see it in action. Now, being able to vary the speed of rotation works great for us because we'll be shooting at different frame rates. A lot of the time we'll be undercranking, so we'll be going below normal frame rate at 5 frames per second, so that when we conform that back to 24, or in our case 25, the motion would be a lot faster. So this really helps us because we can actually slow the rotation right down so that when it plays back, it's got a nice, smooth, controllable speed to the roll.
So if we were just going to do some straight, just like tracking shots, fixed camera, one screen would be enough, but actually we really not only want to rotate it, which is going to take it off our screen, but also really want to try getting some manual pans as we go past it as well. We don't have a motion control whole camera rig, but that's okay, because I'm so dope on the fluid head. I think what we really just need is actually bringing in a separate piece that's actually coming that way. If we kept it flat going that way, it'd have to be huge, but there's no need for that. We can actually create a bit of a corner, and that should sort out our pans as well. So I think we're going to get loads of light off these keynotes, so I'm probably actually going to add some diffusion onto them, although they're relatively soft lights already. I think a bit of diff just to spread it out. It's always a balance though, because the more you spread light, the more it starts to drift into other places. So I'll put that on, and then we'll see how our key's looking. We'll take the house lights out, put it into dark, and then see how much light is spilling onto the ship. We want as little as possible. Obviously we're getting a little bit of spill on the wings here. I'm not totally sure what f-stop we're going to be at, what shutter speed we're going to be at. The Kinos at the moment, they're on about as low as they'll go. So we've still got lots more juice, so I can bring them up if we need to, depending, because we'll probably stop down on the f-stop quite a lot. So yeah, that's not too bad actually. But bear in mind, of course, that we're going to stick a hard tungsten light at it, firing straight at it, so that'll negate a lot of the spill that we're getting there. And we're not pulling mats as they did back in the day, so it's not like we have to sort of create that perfect black keyable image, as long as there's a nice contrast between the foreground and blue screen, we're all good. The only thing we've got left now really for background wise is obviously we've got this gap between our blue flat and our chroma blue background. So I'm basically just going to cut a slice off the bottom of the chroma colorama and just use some blue camera tape and just tie them around. Keying software is so good. A little bit of difference in blues is not going to be a big deal. You know, a slight variation is not going to be a problem for our grading software. Okay, so I've actually gaffer taped at the back of this because camera tape actually is just not very sticky. It's good for certain things, but actually sticking stuff to stuff is not very good. So I'm actually going to use some of this, which is lovingly referred to as snot tape. Oh, come on. And this is made for sticking stuff to stuff. It's essentially double-sided tape, just really hardcore. Peel it back, stick her on. And that is not going anywhere. And then I'll just use a bit of blue camera tape just to bring these seams in, because we don't want any heavy shadows, which obviously as that kind of starts to pull away, you'll get a bit of shadow in there. But camera tape is strong enough that as it's mainly being held by this stuff, just stick that over some of the more serious seams. Okay, so to light our TIE fighter, we just need a single key, the assumption being that wherever a planet is, it's gonna have a sun, right? And so it should just be a single light, hard, and we're gonna stick it as high as possible so that when we start rotating our TIE fighter, we get those really nice shadows that give us a sense of geometry and space. I'm gonna use a 2K and we'll just throw it up, see how it looks. Pretty toppy. So now we just need to try and get rid of this shadow on the pylon.
Rather than a bit of card. Let's call it a pylon. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Because yeah, when they shot these for New Hope, we'll call it a pylon, that's actually holding it were themselves lit, as were the blue screens, so that they emit their own light. That's not what we have. We've covered it with some chroma paper, and so essentially what we need to do is kind of bring either some bounce. I'm going to try some bounce first and see if that's enough. If not, we might stick a little dado under there and try and just knock that shadow out, just to keep our key nice and clean. Just put a little 2x2 in there. It's not really enough, is it? We'll get a dado, because at least that's nice and focusable. Oh, it's proper blue, isn't it?
Kind of feels like we need something to pick that out, because if this is going to, for argument's sake, if that's going to be pure black.
Yeah. Oh, so we do want a bit of like fill.
It'd be nice to have something in there.
Yeah. Because the TIE Fighter wings are so dark, we use a softbox LED panel just to lift those shadows a little. Yeah.
Feels counterintuitive. It's like, well, where's that fill coming from?
Yeah. Well, it would be coming from the surface.
Yeah.
The surface is a light grey, so that would be bouncing a lot of the sunlight back up. As you can see, our dado light that's lighting the blue pylon is hitting the wing, and so we just use a flag to block that light spill. Now a stand isn't really ideal because it's so low. So what I'm doing, K-clamp, magic arm, knuckle, and I can literally just attach it to that, put that on there. Let me get our position. And it's actually just taking off that slight hotspot on the blue screen as well. Yeah, here we go.
So we're going to be shooting at 5 frames per second, which is under crank. We're going to be shooting at that frame rate, so the dolly move that we're going to do will be sped up to give the appearance of the craft moving fast. We're going to have a lower shutter speed, giving us in-camera motion blur. And it just adds some more speed and dynamic moves to the motion. What it also does is it gives us a lot more exposure. So although we've got wonderful facility of lighting here, it doesn't have to be overpowering. So we've actually got a lot of bandwidth in our exposure because we have dropped the frame rate. And plus this camera's really nice and high ISO. 3200 ISO. We're at 3200 because we're at f11 or f10 at the moment. So we're stopping the lens right down. And as before, when we've shot other miniature things, we want to maintain a very deep depth of focus. So we want everything as sharp as possible. Luckily for this setup, we don't have to pull focus because it is so fast and there's a lot of motion blur actually in the frame. Yeah, because we have a remote follow focus, and I was going to set that up, and then once we got all our settings, we actually did some run-throughs, and it's pretty much sharp all the way through. So happily, I don't have to pull focus. Woohoo! Because I'm not a focus puller. That looks pretty great. Do you know what else is great? Liking and subscribing to our channel, and don't forget to share with your friends. So we're all set. Obviously, an ideal scenario is that we would have a motion-controlled dolly system. We don't have that, so we are tracking manually. We've got our track as level and solid as we can. And I'm just going to try and get as consistent a move and speed as I can. We're going to do a few passes just straight with the TIE Fighter just locked off. And once we've got a few of those that we're happy with, we're then going to start playing with some rotations. So we start rolling through takes, and each time we review the footage and check to make sure we're getting the best speed and smoothness. That looks great to me.
Yeah.
Yep. That's a good one.
Cool. All right. Nice. Okay, so we've got our passes with the ship just locked off. Now it's time to start playing with some rotation. So we're just sort of firing up the motors, firing up the converters.
What seems to work really nicely is just having a side-to-side or part 90-degree-ish rotation. So we get the shadow play on the surface of the ship, and that just helps sell its three-dimensional nature. Really. Not getting too much motion blur. Because I know that when I put the post treatment of blur on there, it's going to help really blend those edges.
It's just the lines of it. It's such a glorious design, isn't it? That may be a bit much, I don't know.
So maybe roll here for a couple of seconds.
Yeah.
and then ramp into it.
Right, so start static.
Yeah. It's great. I know I'm going to get back and have like 1,000 clips.
So many clips. It really does.
We basically should reenact Star Wars and
Pretty much.
shot for shot do it.
So now we've got all the tracking shots that we wanted. Next up, we're just going for a locked off camera setup.
So even what we did just now
Yeah.
can be flipped and angled and gives the appearance that it's diving,
Gotcha.
purely because the star field is moving that way.
Yeah.
And likewise, we can post move into that shot for half the stuff we've just done. Add some lasers. Oh, that's another thing I wanted to do on this setup.
Yes.
I've got my LED panel set to the green, and that'll literally be a case of locked off camera, letting it do exactly what it just did, and I'll just, for one of the, or two of the revolutions, I'll offer up my lighting, and I can just flick that layer on and off.
Great.
For the interactive lighting. Yes.
Did you just say that the sound of the TIE fighters is an elephant?
Yeah, it's an elephant mixed with, I think Ben Burtt's car going down a gravel track without the engine on. Yeah, so that interactive kind of, that's all like hand animation.
Right.
But it's fascinating watching them with quite a forensic eye.
Yeah.
Because you realise, and especially knowing how much you can post manipulate the moves that we get in camera.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes total sense that they did it the way that they did. But it still looks great. You know?
Yeah, it really does.
And it's all about the kinetic action and the way it's cut.
Okay, so we've done a whole bunch of tracks, pans, rolls, a real variation of stuff that's pretty much got, I think, all of the moves that we see happening in New Hope. So the only other thing we really want to get before we try some different angles is some laser blasts. So essentially like muzzle flashes, laser muzzle flashes. And so for that, so what we're thinking, so we'll lock off the camera. Yes. And then we'll get a shot with, a shot without any green, just as is. Then you're thinking we bring the green in, hold it, get a few seconds of that. And then I think what you just said is you're basically just then gonna like comp that in and out. So rather than trying to create a flash, we're actually just gonna get a nice constant green light underneath. We can even maybe just try it here, try it there, try it there for a few different luminances on the ship. And then literally, because they're both comped, they're both still shots, we can just bring in pops of one shot over another to bring in those laser flashes. So we'll try it static, and then we'll try it with some roll as well. Okie doke. All right, let's bring her in. Oh God, oh God. When you bring the green light and put it against the TIE fighter, I get the It's just sci-fi time. Let's face it, it's sci-fi time. Okay, ready? Yep. Roll in on that. Yeah. Yeah, that's nice. What do you want that at? Just like 25 or?
Let's go
24.
Let's go 15.
15. This guy. So what JP's doing now is just getting a few moves. So actually almost as if when the laser blasts come out, they fade from underneath to the front. So that's a really nice option to have as well. Yeah, lovely. Yeah, that looks great. And you have to do the noise. Yeah, that looks great.
So start that there.
To give us the maximum flexibility in post-production in terms of timing of laser blasts and the lights that they emit, we do one full take just with the TIE fighter locked off with no green light, then we do a second take holding the light underneath it at some slightly different angles. That way we can bring that up anytime we want. Woo! Big day, big day. All right, we've got so much amazing stuff. Just too excited to start sticking backgrounds onto this. We're going to throw in some different stuff. We're going to throw in some star fields. We're going to throw in some trench action as well, really just to show how throwing backgrounds into these kind of moving shots just makes them so much more kinetic. So we're going to show you a little sneak peek of some of those shots with some comped backgrounds in there, just to give you a sense of what this is going to look like. But you're going to have to join us for the next part in order to see how JP has composited those shots and just see what a difference it can make when you start putting in moving backgrounds.